Chapter 261, 176. With an ordinary body, directly confront a high-level powerhouse _2. The top priority is to escape this tree cage first. No one else was stunned, and they quickly took action, following him to leave. Zhang Kai shouted anxiously, "My leg is broken, can someone carry me?" Zhu Shishi, who was running in front, immediately turned back to carry him upon hearing this. Xiao Chen, I can run on my own." Shen Qinghan, lying on Lin Zikin's shoulder, felt uncomfortable all the way and weakly said. Lin Zikin flatly refused, "No, you run too slowly." Shen Qinghan pursed her lips and chose to lie down obediently without making a sound, trying not to disturb Lin Zikin. At this moment, as Lin Zikin was sprinting at high speed, he suddenly smelled a fragrance. It was very pleasant, soothing to the heart and mind. It felt like Shen Qinghan was caressing his head with her soft, warm hands, sweeping away all fatigue from his body, so comfortable that his body tingled. You are being invaded by a floral poison that can render biological beings unconscious. Poison resistance +1+1+1+1+1. As the prompt appeared, Lin Zikin instantly felt a wave of blandness, quickly recovering from the tingling sensation. Upon regaining consciousness, his first reaction was to stop and check on Shen Qinghan's condition on his shoulder. She hadn't passed out, but her consciousness was very blurry, similar to her state when she first woke up in the morning. The people behind him, on the other hand, had collapsed in large numbers. Most of them had fallen unconscious, with a few kneeling and struggling to prop up their upper bodies, seemingly about to faint any moment. They were all poisoned. It wasn't a coincidence. Someone must be hiding in the shadows, releasing poison. Realizing this, Lin Zikin instantly heightened his sensory perception, meticulously searching every corner around him. Soon, he sensed a powerful biological aura coming from the direction of the fragrance. As strong as an ordinary 9th rank great perfection. This biological level, it's a sect hierarch of the divine plant cult. Oh! Not only did you not succumb to the poison, but you can even detect my presence. As an astonished woman's voice rang out. The next second, a graceful figure stepped out deliberately from the direction Lin Zikin was looking towards. It was the masked woman who had appeared on the tree with the masked man earlier. The mask she wore had a conspicuous shamrock pattern on it. Not even 20 years old, and you possess such astonishing strength, no wonder the higher UPS on the sex side are willing to take the risk of orchestrating this attack to control you. The masked woman's voice sounded relaxed and easy, obviously not taking Lin Zikin seriously. Similarly, Lin Zikin didn't take her seriously either, asking indifferently, "Are you the sect hierarch of a branch of the divine plant cult?" "Precisely," the woman said with a faint smile. Lin Zikin nodded, gently setting Shen Qinghan down from his shoulder. Then, all of a sudden, he took a quick stride forward, transforming into a blur as he dashed towards the masked woman with a speed far exceeding that of ordinary creatures. So fast! The masked woman was shocked, never expecting Lin Zikin to burst out with such terrifying speed. She reacted quickly, wanting to flee. But before she could even lift her leg, Lin Zikin had already reached her. Raising a fist infused with the power of blood qi and smashing it forcefully toward her face. Bang! With that sound, the head of the masked woman burst like a watermelon thrown from the 3rd floor, her brain and blood spattering everywhere. The remaining headless corpse was severely damaged by the residual blood qi power in her neck, swiftly becoming torn apart and all organs destroyed, losing the possibility of self-healing. Lin Zikin adeptly made use of the resources, reaching out to touch the corpse with a thought, "Devour. You have devoured a large amount of the Shadow Nightcat's life essence. Shadow Nightcat album, 62%. You have devoured a large amount of the Ghost Shark's life essence. Ghost Shark album, 23%. Elsewhere, a few individuals still kneeling and not yet unconscious had witnessed the scene of Lin Zikin rushing forward and exploding the masked woman with one punch. They all had their eyes wide open, their hearts churning with shock and awe. Just one punch, and they had blown up the sect hierarch, whose biological level was as high as ordinary 9th rank great perfection. So strong. Unbelievably strong. Practically inhuman. Linziken shook the blood off his fists, and under the stunned gaze of the onlookers, walked back. He checked Shen Qinghan's condition. Seeing that Shen Qinghan was still in a foggy state, he then looked at a few others who were relatively awake, asking, "You are all poisoned, does anyone carry detox medications? Zhao Yuanzong's coat lining might have some, go check it out," Lu Ruhi, the strongest fighter among the military team, said with great difficulty while propping up his upper body. His physical strength was extremely high, relatively speaking, so was his poison resistance. He wasn't as severely poisoned and was still somewhat conscious, but his muscles were numb, and he couldn't stand. Upon hearing this, Linziken immediately headed towards Zhao Yuanzhong. At that moment, Zhao Yuanzhong lay unconscious on the ground, completely out of it. In terms of resistance to poison, he was worse off than Shen Qinghan, who was only at the 6th order. Linziken squatted beside Zhao Yuanzhong, unzipping his jacket, and quickly found 3 small plastic vials in an inner lining pocket of the jacket. The vials were labeled Antidote, External Injury, Internal Injury. Linziken opened the vial marked Antidote and poured out a small white pill, the size of a soybean. It felt very hard. It gave off a bitter medicinal scent. Linziken pried open Zhao Yuanzong's mouth and tossed the white pill inside. It wasn't long before Zhao Yuanzong's eyes opened groggily. Still numb, he couldn't stand up but had regained some consciousness. Chapter 262, 176. Facing high-level powerhouses with an ordinary physique _3. Seeing that the white pill was effective, Linziken immediately gave it to Shen Qinghan, and then to the others. Soon, the unconscious people on the ground woke up one after another. But their consciousness was still somewhat vague, and their bodies were numb and weak, unable to move for quite some time. It could only be said that the white pills were somewhat useful, but not much. While waiting for everyone to detoxify, Linziken, having nothing better to do, went back to the bamboo building, scavenging, and devouring the bodies of the divine plant cult cultists on the ground. To be precise, it was not devouring the bodies, but the exotic beast genes contained within the bodies. He had killed 2 quickly before, taking down 7 in the blink of an eye and seriously injuring 1, and he had forgotten to absorb them. Taking advantage of this free time, he went back and devoured them all. You have absorbed a trace of the Ironclad Rhino Life Essence. Ironclad Rhino Compendium, 8%. You have absorbed a trace of the Sawtooth Crocodile Life Essence. Sawtooth Crocodile Compendium, 7%. You have absorbed a trace of the Ice Fire Poison Scorpion Life Essence. Ice Fire Poison Scorpion Compendium, 9%. Linziken devoured a total of 7 bodies consecutively, and each time he gained a new life essence, opening up progress bars for 7 new compendiums. Regarding this, he inwardly lamented it was a pity. Unless he could directly achieve 100% and unlock the biometric attributes. Otherwise, it would just be starting a progress bar, which was not as substantial as strengthening existing biometric attributes. Shaking his head, Linziken stopped in front of a small tree. This small tree was growing in a very strange way. The leaves were a deep red like blood. The branches were covered with vein-like crevices. Looking at it was a bit disturbing mentally. This strange little tree, which grew from the mouth of the severely injured divine plant cult cultist they had interrogated, must have developed from a goo seed, right? Linziken thought of this possibility. Before, when he was in school, the divine plant cult had launched an attack on him. They had instructed Wang Shuzhe and Lu Gang to plot and hand him a goo seed, hoping he would consume it. Yuan Dongji once said that the goo seed was used to control people. And the best way to control someone is by having control over their life and death. Thinking about this, the function of the gu seed was mostly likely for the controlled individual to take immediate root and sprout upon committing any act of betrayal, directly killing the betrayer. Makes sense. If not surprising, it should be as he had thought. With that thought, Lin Zikan reached out and touched the strange tree in front of him, thinking, devour. No response. No system notification popped out in the void. Lin Zikan was initially puzzled, but then he quickly realized. He almost forgot, the law of the jungle only allowed him to devour the life essence of the dead, not living beings. Snap! Just then, a snapping sound arose. Lin Zikan swung his hand swiftly, mercilessly cutting down the strange tree in front of him, then using his blood chi power to completely destroy its inner structure. He then touched the tree again, which was now dead beyond any doubt, and thought, devour. You have absorbed a trace of the bloodthirsty gu tree life essence. Bloodthirsty gu tree compendium, 0.01%. He could actually devour it. Lin Zikan's heart surged with excitement, a bit surprised. But soon, the surprise faded away. Because he discovered, to his dismay, that the bloodthirsty gu tree compendium's progress was only 0.01%. Each newly born sapling of the bloodthirsty gu tree could only provide 0.01% of the opening progress for the compendium. By that calculation, he would need to devour 10,000 to unlock the compendium. Where would he find 10,000 to devour? All the divine plant cult cultists in the country added together might not even number 10,000. After contemplating these things for a while, soon, Lin Zikan left the area near the bamboo building and returned to where the others were. In a forest not far from the tree cage, Lu Tianrong and the masked man were locked in a tense battle, evenly matched and relentless. The deafening sounds of fierce impacts kept exploding around them. Every tree the two passed by, towering and majestic, fell one after another, alarming the wild animals in the surrounding forests into a frenzied flight. So what if you force me out of the tree cage? Do you really think a group of elite trainees, not even 20 years old, can defeat an ordinary 9th-rank genetic integrator who has fully fused genes twice? Now, even if you want to go back to the tree cage, I won't let you, just stay here with me and continue this indecisive struggle. Ha 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 ha. The masked man dodged an incoming chop while laughing mockingly, attacking Lu Tianrong's mental fortitude continuously. He aimed to provoke a strong emotional response in Lu Tianrong, the instructor, which could potentially affect his performance. Lu Tianrong was aware of the masked man's intentions. But still, he was affected. The thought of the elite trainees in the tree cage possibly losing to the sect hierarch, and then being killed or abducted by him, inevitably stirred strong emotions in him. After all, those 20 elite trainees were future geniuses with bright prospects. If they grew normally, they would all likely evolve into rare-level beings in the future. Some, with better luck and access to substantial resources for evolution in the origin land, might even evolve into epic-level beings, becoming humanity's most top-tier combat power. If anything happened to this group of elite talents, then Lu Tianrong, as the leading instructor, would not be able to remedy the loss even if he died 1,000 times over. Lu Tianrong knew this very well. Considering this, he hesitated for a moment. In the end, he gritted his teeth and decided to take a gamble, activating his exotic beast gene well beyond its usual limit. 120% activation of the four-armed demon ape gene. Chapter 263, 176. Facing high-level powerhouses with an ordinary physique _4. Saber-tooth tiger gene, 130% activation. At the moment when these two advanced exotic beast genes were excessively activated, Lu Tianrong's mouth instantly sprouted 2 rows of short sword-like sharp canines, a pair of powerful arms emerged from his back, and his entire body swelled by 50%, turning into an imposing beast man. Die! Lu Tianrong's eyes shone with a blood-red gloss as he let out a wild roar, his voice filled with savagery. He then forcefully launched himself with his legs, snapping the trunk of a towering tree over 1 meter in radius underneath him with a crack, and rocketed toward the masked man like a high-speed missile. The masked man didn't have time to react and dodge, and was sent flying hundreds of meters by a punch, crashing through more than a dozen giant trees before he was barely able to stop. Buzz! Liu Tianrong flashed forward, emitting a piercing whistling sound as he relentlessly attacked the masked man, giving the latter no chance to recover. This time, the masked man reacted, coughing up blood as he used his displacement ability to flee for his life. Bang! Boom! Thud! The masked man ran frantically, with Liu Tianrong doggedly in pursuit. Every time he caught up, Liu Tianrong's punches were fierce and vicious, aimed to kill the masked man with a hateful force. Several times, the masked man failed to evade in time and was pierced through by Liu Tianrong's fist, nearly dying on the spot. If it wasn't for the living dead slug gene constantly at work, he would probably have been beaten into a pulp by now, dead beyond death. You're insane, you motherfucker, insane. Overactivating the exotic beast gene, you'll eventually completely mutate and lose your mind. Do you really have to die to atone for failing to protect those special trainees as an instructor? Foolish. How utterly foolish. If you can't go back to the military zone, you could fully choose to join the divine plant cult and create the future together with us. Why insist on sacrificing your life for nothing? As an advanced level creature, you can live above others anywhere, why go to such lengths? If you join the divine plant cult, you can live better than in the military zone. The masked man struggled to withstand Liu Tianrong's relentless assault, no longer daring to mock as he had before. Instead, he attempted to coax Liu Tianrong. He wanted to end this mutually destructive death match. However, Liu Tianrong was not tempted and continued to attack fiercely, depleting his own life. Damn it! Lunatic! Fuck your mother's lunatic! Seeing that Liu Tianrong was not heedful of persuasion, the masked man cursed vehemently on the spot. His heart hardened, he shouted at Liu Tianrong with a fierce expression, "You forced my hand." The instant he finished speaking, the masked man took out a red, wriggling seed from who knows where, and swallowed it without any hesitation. The next second, the masked man's skin bulged with a large number of bizarre veins. These veins writhed ceaselessly, as though a multitude of worms were living inside them. Go down! The masked man glared furiously as he shouted. He then sacrificed a great deal of his vital blood to invoke a forbidden technique from within the divine plant cult, summoning numerous sturdy vines covered in sharp spikes. These vines burst through the ground in an instant, rising swiftly into the sky. They enveloped Liu Tianrong above in their shadows, as if blotting out the sun. Suddenly, they tightly constricted, wrapping Liu Tianrong into a chrysalis several meters thick, suspending him midair, unable to move. Damn fool, you cost me half my life. The masked man gasped for air, muttering weakly. Then without wasting any time, he quickly headed towards the cage made of trees. Thinking of quickly returning to secure Linziken and report back to the main base of the cult, lest there be further complications. At the tree cage, Linziken returned to the others and found that everyone had recovered quite a bit and could stand and walk from the ground. Those who had recovered well could even run. But they weren't fast, looking like elderly men shuffling along. Apparently, the flower poison was still potent. So potent that these geniuses couldn't fully recover even after taking the antidote for some time. Xiao Chen, my legs feel so weak. Shen Qinghan said while massaging her thighs, frowning slightly at Linziken. Linziken, it's okay, I'll carry you later. Shen Qinghan, no need. You need it. After saying that, Linziken looked at the others and said, since everyone can walk now, let's leave this tree cage quickly to avoid any unexpected problems. Everyone agreed and started to get up to leave. Linziken picked up Shen Qinghan and quickly walked towards an opening ahead. Buzz! Suddenly, a faint sound of tearing air came from behind. Linziken looked back and saw, with the help of his sky eye, a figure rapidly approaching from hundreds of meters away. Upon closer inspection, he recognized the blood-covered masked man. P.S. Asking for monthly and recommendation tickets. Chapter 264, 177, Ordinary 9th Rank. Combat against a high-level 6th Order. He saw only a bloodied masked man, with no sign of Liu Tianrong. This meant Liu Tianrong might have been defeated. At this thought, Linziken's heart plunged into an abyss, and his expression turned ugly. There was no time to think further. Quickly, Linziken put down Shen Qinghan, whom he was carrying on his back. With a solemn expression, he said to her and the others, "Everyone listen to me. I sense that the masked man who can control vines is now hundreds of meters away, approaching us rapidly. And behind him, I don't see the instructor's figure. This implies that the instructor has likely been defeated. The masked man is after me, I'll be responsible for drawing his attention next, to create an opportunity for you all to escape. Don't look back, don't worry about me, and don't stay behind to be my burden." After saying this quickly, Linziken turned and sprinted in the opposite direction at top speed, to create distance and ensure their safety. Among them, the safety of Shen Qinghan was of utmost importance. "Xiao Chen, you must come back." Shen Qinghan's eyes were somewhat moist as she shouted hoarsely at the rapidly disappearing figure of Linziken. As soon as her words fell, Linziken, who was quickly moving away, responded with one word, "Okay." Hearing this response, Shen Qinghan raised her hand to wipe away her tears and stopped standing still, quickly catching up with the others to leave. She very well knew that with her biological level being only an ordinary 6th rank, she was in no position to help Linziken in the current situation. All she could do was to distance herself from Linziken and not become a burden to him. Elsewhere, Linziken, who was moving rapidly through the woods, continuously kept his eyes on the masked man, now only a bit more than 400 meters away, observing his direction of movement. Seeing the masked man change his course and stop chasing after Shen Qinghan, instead pursuing himself, Linziken breathed a sigh of relief. "Fortunately, it seems the masked man really is after me. Han Han should be safe now. Next, I need to run frantically towards the edge of the forest. The masked man can only utilize his full strength within the forest, so as long as I'm not within it, my chances of survival will greatly increase. Perhaps, I can even try to counterattack and kill him." While sprinting, Linziken thought to himself, and a bold idea of killing the masked man formed in his mind. In the time he had been running, he belatedly realized that the speed of the masked man was off, not like that of a high-level 6th rank expert. Upon a rough comparison, it seemed he was only one level stronger than Linziken himself. His own strength, considering the 3rd stage body refinement completion and various biometric attributes bonuses, was about at the high-level 3rd rank. That meant the masked man was currently around a high-level 4th rank strength. His strength had slipped from high-level 6th rank to high-level 4th rank. It seemed he was seriously injured. But serious injuries were to be expected. After all, the masked man had killed a peer of the same order, Liu Tianrong. And to kill an opponent of the same order without a significant cost was simply not realistic. The masked man is so heavily injured, with barely 10% of his strength left, it seems I might truly have a chance to kill him. Using the illusion of my biological level being just an ordinary 9th rank, create an information gap by feigning weakness, and then take him by surprise with a sneak attack. Aim for a vital point and strike hard. Then, take advantage of his weakened state to finish him off with a relentless assault. Yes, I've decided. I'll try to kill him. With this thought in mind, Linziken immediately slowed his pace, his face showing signs of exhaustion. He pretended that he had only been able to run that fast because he had taken some drugs, which allowed for a short-term burst of strength far beyond his biological level by borrowing against his stamina. Now that his stamina was depleted, his explosive power dropped sharply. This was logically sound and seemed utterly plausible. Not to mention, it made far more sense than a young man, barely 20 years old, having the speed of a high-level third rank. After Linziken slowed down, it didn't take long for the seriously injured masked man to catch up. The distance between the two of them was now only a few tens of meters. Buzz! 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 A series of whooshing sounds followed. The masked man whipped several vines towards Linziken, who was up ahead. The speed of the whipping was not fast, and the strength was moderate. At the level of an ordinary 9th rank. The masked man was being careful not to accidentally kill Linziken with too strong a hit. In his eyes, ordinary creatures were too fragile, easily crushed to death. If he wanted to capture Linziken alive, he had to be gentle with his hits. Linziken, frantically running ahead, could feel the oncoming vine strikes from behind were not powerful. To create an opportunity for his own sneak attack. After dodging several times, he intentionally failed to evade in time once. He was directly whipped hard on the back by the vine. He flew out as a result. Then, with a thud, he hit a towering tree in front of him, causing a rain of dry branches and leaves to fall. After sliding down from the trunk, he collapsed, barely breathing, on the ground. Seeing Linziken collapse on the ground and unable to rise, the masked man also stopped his strenuous sprint. He placed his hands on his hips and stayed put to catch his breath, panting heavily with disordered breaths, feeling a burning pain in his organs, which was extremely uncomfortable. During the fierce battle with Liu Tianrong, he was severely injured. The sprint just now was all sustained by adrenaline. Now that the adrenaline levels had dropped slightly, the pain and fatigue overwhelmed his body instantly, making him acutely aware that his injuries were severe, with only about 10% of his strength remaining. Chapter 265, 177, Ordinary 9th Rank. Combat against a high-level 6th Order, _2. Damn you, you sure run fast. As the masked man caught his breath, he looked ahead at Linziken and said, if you hadn't slowed down, I would have had to put in a lot more effort to catch you. After finishing, he curiously added, the speed you just burst out with far exceeded your own biometric attributes. Did you inject yourself with some kind of stimulant that can unleash the body's potential? Is there even such a potent drug that can make an ordinary 9th rank explode with the speed of an advanced level creature? Could it be a new development from the military zone? Linziken gave no response, continuing to lie on the ground, at death's door. With the natural camouflage biometric attribute, he had no worry that his ruse would be detected by the masked man. Now, all he needed to do was quietly wait for the masked man to come closer. Then, in the moment the enemy lowered his guard, he would strike at a vital point, heavily injuring the attacker in one fell swoop. Unaware that he was being plotted against, the masked man continued talking. That bed servant of mine who was only a step away from evolving into an advanced level creature must have underestimated you, and then you managed to kill her using the power of the stimulant. Do you know how long I spent training that bed servant to please men better than any prostitute? 5 years, it took me a full 5 years to train her properly. And you just went and killed her like that. You've really pissed me off. Though the masked man claimed to be very angry, there was always a faint smile on his face. He wiped the blood from his face and continued. My usual revenge on my enemies includes turning their families' women into my bed servants. Given your good looks, the women in your family must be great beauties. Your mother still retains her charm. Your sister is sexy and tall. Your little sister, pure and cute. Tisk tisk, just thinking about it is irresistible. Listening to these obscene words, Linziken felt a surge of emotion. But, bolstered by natural camouflage, his emotional fluctuation was well concealed, and the masked man detected none of it. At this moment, the masked man was still rambling on with shameful and heart-racing vulgarity. All about serving one husband with 3 women. All about crimes committed right in front of the husband. Whatever was morally corrupting, he said. Whatever was provocative, he said it. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. But soon, he shook his head and said with a look of regret, "Too bad the divine plant cult wants to control you, to nurture you, to have you become one of the upper echelons of the cult. Instead of seeing you as a future threat and nipping you in the bud. This way, we're destined to be colleagues in the main church. And you can't make a colleague's family into bed servants, can you? What a pity, such a pity." Hearing this, the look of regret on the masked man's face disappeared, replaced by his original excitement as he smiled and said, "Those special trainees who were just with you, I noticed a few of the girls are quite good looking. Especially that little girl with blue hair, delicate features, fair and tender skin, prettier than any TV star. Once I've recovered, I must find an opportunity to capture those girls and train them as my bed servants, to serve the high and mighty master together in bed." Just thinking about this enticing scenario excited the masked man. Most others joined the divine plant cult under coercion or enticement. But he volunteered to join the divine plant cult to experience the legendary luxuriant fairy sirens. He wasn't interested in money or power, only in lust. The honey trap had a success rate of 100% with him. "All right, my blood chi has almost recovered now, time to leave." The masked man smiled, his leg lifting as he walked towards where Lin Ziyi lay. He quickly approached Lin Zikan, stooping down to grab the man on the ground, intending to haul him back to the divine plant cult's headquarters to complete his mission. But at the moment he reached out his hand. Lin Zikan, feigning his last breath on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes, and with a swift motion bounced up, blood chi power surging, and violently punched towards the masked man's groin. With a loud bang, Lin Zikan's fiery fist brutally hit the masked man's groin, pumping the copious blood chi power into it instantly. It ruthlessly shattered everything in its path, sinew, bone, and flesh. The masked man's face twisted in excruciating pain, and he instinctively cried out in agony. Immediately, blood chi erupted and, with one hand clutching his severely injured groin, he quickly retreated backward. Buzz! Lin Zikan was quick to react, and as the masked man moved back, he also exploded with blood chi, chasing after him. Simultaneously, he let out a rare swear in his mind. A high-level 6th order who was severely injured was much sturdier than he had imagined. Even though he had targeted the enemy's vital spot and unleashed power close to a high-level 4th rank with a heavy punch, the opponent had not been critically injured as expected. Merely shouting out in pain. Then quickly retreating. Still possessing sufficient capacity for action. Buzz! A piercing sound of tearing air arose. Lin Zikan caught up with the masked man and once again unleashed a vast amount of blood chi power, fiercely punching towards his temple. This punch was extremely forceful and quick, almost reaching the might of a high-level 4th order. The critically injured masked man had no chance to dodge this punch. He could only bitterly raise an arm, desperately guarding his temple. Chapter 266, 177. Ordinary 9th rank. Combat against a high-level 6th order, _3. And then, boom, with a loud explosion. The entire arm was smashed to pieces, spattering blood everywhere. Buzz! At the same time, another whooshing sound broke through the air. Lin Zikan threw a fierce punch and immediately followed with a violent kick toward the wounded groin of the masked man. The punch aimed at the head was just a feint. Lin Zikan's true target was the masked man's bleeding groin. If one punch can't severely injure you, then take another kick. I don't believe I can't seriously wound you. Bang! With an immense force of blood chi power, Lin Zikan precisely kicked the masked man's injured groin. In an instant, the terrifying impact force and the massive blood chi power surged into the opponent's groin. Even the right hand that was tightly covering it got destroyed along with it. "Ah!" The masked man cried out in pain once more. His face turned purple with pain. He felt like he was about to pass out. Buzz! It was yet another explosive whooshing sound. Lin Zikin, as if possessing inexhaustible chi blood, again punched violently with massive blood chi power toward the masked man's groin. In disregard of the excruciating pain coming from his groin, the masked man exploded with the last of his blood chi power, and in the moment the punch came down, he flashed aside, narrowly avoiding the deadly blow. Afterward, he retreated rapidly to create as much distance from Lin Zikin as possible, avoiding a head-on clash. What's going on? What the hell is going on? This bastard was already on his last breath, so how could he suddenly resurrect with full health and mana, and even erupt with the might of a high-level fourth order? This doesn't make sense. None of this makes any sense. At this moment, the masked man, while retreating frantically, was filled with dread inside. He was utterly baffled by Lin Zikin's sudden outburst. Wait a minute. Reagent? Could it be that the reagent was still effective? Did this bastard realize that continuing to flee would only lead to a dead end, so he decided to fight to the death with me while the reagent was still working? So the earlier slowdown was intentional? Getting caught in the controlled vines was intentional? All to deceive me into coming close for a surprise attack? Damn it! Despicable scoundrel! Sneaky bastard! No martial virtues! In just a short moment, the masked man figured out the reason for Lin Zikin's full recovery and couldn't help but curse furiously in his mind. After that, he breathed a sigh of relief. Lin Zikin's current strength was all thanks to the temporary effect of the reagent. As long as he could withstand this wave of onslaught, Lin Zikin would soon become weak and be at his mercy. Buzz! Lin Zikin erupted with all the blood chi power inside him, launching another punch toward the masked man's groin. He didn't know what the masked man was thinking. All he knew was that he couldn't have any pause. He had to keep up the fierce attacks, not giving the masked man any chance to recover. Until he knocked him down to the ground, sending him off to accompany his bed slave. Continue. Continue attacking me. I want to see how long you can hold on. When your chi blood is exhausted, that will be the time you're humiliated under my feet. I will not only humiliate you, but I will also shame the women in your family. Fuck your mom. The masked man resorted to his usual tricks, taunting his opponent with words to provoke emotional fluctuations, thereby affecting his opponent's chi blood and their strength. Lin Zikin's emotions fluctuated. His chi blood also fluctuated in response. However, his strength did not diminish as a result. Instead, it grew stronger and stronger. Every punch he threw was more powerful than the last. Bang! 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 A succession of striking sounds exploded. Lin Zikin's punches and kicks landed furiously on the masked man's body. Neck, chest, groin. Every part of the masked man's body that could be attacked endured Lin Zikin's extremely fierce punches and kicks. The forehead was smashed by a punch. The chest was caved in by a punch. The groin was split by a kick. Copious amounts of blood poured out of the masked man's various wounded parts. His body grew weaker and weaker, his vision blurred, ready to lose consciousness at any moment. Impossible. This is impossible. You're merely a being of ordinary rank. How can you continuously explode with chi blood? How can it never run out no matter how you use it? Phew! Cough 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 cough. The masked man spoke these words in horror, coughing up blood as he spoke. His face visibly paled, looking utterly bloodless, seemingly close to collapsing and dying. Having lived for over 30 years, he couldn't fathom what was happening before him. He always thought that Lin Zikin's surge of power was just temporary. Once the effect of the reagent wore off, he would regress back to his ordinary level. But how many times has Lin Zikin erupted with chi blood now? More than 10 times. Yet, not only did Lin Zikin not grow weaker, but he also grew stronger and stronger. Every punch he threw was more lethal than the last. How could this be? The masked man was utterly bewildered, ignoring the blood continuously spurting from his throat. He shouted at Linziken, who was still furiously attacking. "What's going on? What the hell is going on with you? You're not even 20 years old, just a mere ordinary rank ant. How can you keep bursting out with the power of a high-level 4th order? Phew! Cough cough!" Overwhelmed with emotion, he shouted too loudly, feeling as if his vocal cords were torn with blood spilling out, and he couldn't stop coughing. Linziken ignored his screams and just kept pounding him with the fiercest punches and kicks. Chapter 267, 177, Ordinary 9th Rank. Combat against a high-level 6th Order, _4. He was determined to kill him in this forest in one fell swoop, to put an emphatic end to the battle. He would never explain to his adversary that, from birth, he had been in relentless training. For 19 years, day in and day out, he trained. His chi blood surged each day, immensely. Until today, the chi blood he had accumulated inside his body had reached an extreme and even terrifying level. "Ninth Elder, save me!" Suddenly, the masked man looked up and shouted loudly towards a direction on the side. Linziken didn't even glance that way, his gaze was fixed on the masked man, attacking without ceasing. His only goal now was to kill the masked man quickly. "Ninth Elder, I really can't hold on!" The masked man screamed again, pulling at his throat towards the side. It was unknown whether he was truly pleading for help or just trying to deflect Linziken's attention and seize the opportunity to turn the tables. "Ninth Elder, bang!" The masked man tried to shout once more. However, before he could fully pronounce the word elder, Linziken in front of him suddenly landed a fierce punch on his face, sending him flying. Immediately after, he crashed into a towering giant tree behind him with a boom and came to a stop. The cloverleaf mask on the masked man's face had become riddled with unsustainable cracks from the repeated heavy punches. Soon, several crack noises were heard. The mask on the masked man's face shattered, revealing a striking face with sword-like brows and starry eyes. He was extremely good-looking. He appeared to be a handsome middle-aged man in his 40s. Regrettably, the next second, the handsome face that could make countless young women swoon was kicked so hard by the charging Linziken that blood splattered everywhere, with several teeth flying out. Linziken pressed the advantage, his figure flashed to the front of the masked man, he grabbed the man's neck with one hand and pressed his knee against his abdomen, pinning him firmly to the ground. Then, he lifted his other fist and hammered it down on the man's face. Bang! 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 As each thud resounded, the masked man's face had become unrecognizable. It had turned into a mush of flesh. It had become a pool of blood that kept seeping into the ground, getting less and less. Bang! 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 Didn't you know villains die because they talk too much? Why do you have so much to say? Bang! 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 Missing your bed warmer, are you? I'm sending you to her now. Bang! 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 As Linziken furiously pounded the masked man's face, he spoke emotionlessly, loudly venting the negative emotions he had just accumulated. 10 punches, 20 punches, 30 punches. Linziken didn't know how many punches he had thrown. When he felt his fists go numb, a message popped up in the void. "Do you choose to devour?" Upon seeing this message, Linziken relaxed all at once and stopped delivering heavy punches to the unrecognizable man on the ground. For he knew the masked man was dead, reduced to a corporeal mass that could be devoured. A mighty high-level 6th Order warrior had died at the hands of a student with only ordinary 9th rank biological level, dying with unresolved grievances. Even if one was resigned to their fate, they couldn't accept this death. Because his head had been smashed to oblivion, leaving only a mush of flesh mixed with mud. "I killed a high-level 6th Order." Linziken slumped to the ground, inhaling deeply and panting heavily, feeling unreal. Even though it was a seriously injured high-level 6th Order warrior that he killed. Even though there was an element of surprise in his attack. But still. No matter how injured the opponent was, they still possessed the strength of a high-level 4th Order. No matter how much of a surprise attack it was, his biological level was merely ordinary 9th Order. Yet, he had managed to kill the opponent without a scratch within just over 10 minutes, with the body of an ordinary 9th Order. I am really strong. Linziken couldn't help but mutter to himself. Only at this moment did he realize how powerful he was. A body tempered to 3rd stage body refinement completion, plus various biometric attributes that could amplify strength. Even enemies several orders higher stood a chance of being defeated. As Linziken thought these things, suddenly, a hoary voice echoed from behind him. With the body of an ordinary 9th Order, to fight and kill a high-level 6th Order warrior, there is such a genius on Earth, it seems this plan is worthwhile. Who? Linziken spun around sharply. Then, what came into his view was a stooped old man wearing a mask. The mask on the man's face was marked with a very conspicuous 3-leaf clover. P.S. Begging for monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. Chapter 268, 178. The fox-eared girl who appears like a ghost. 9th Elder. At the sight of the hunchbacked masked person, the words 9th Elder appeared in Linziken's mind for the first time. The man in the mask who had turned into a pile of flesh before his death had called out loudly for help from the so-called 9th Elder. The figure of this present hunchbacked person with white hair cascading down his back indeed fit the image of the 9th Elder very well. Buzz! 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 Suddenly, several vines shot out explosively. They wrapped around Linziken in an instant, binding him to the spot so that he could not move. Linziken frowned and immediately exploded with chi blood, attempting to break free from the shackles of these vines. But he found no matter how he exploded with chi blood, he could not break free. The vines on his body looked very slender, only as thick as a finger. Yet, their strength was far superior to the thick vines previously controlled by the masked man. This indicated that the biological level of the hunchbacked masked person was much higher than that of the masked man. Linziken suppressed the panic in his heart and watched the hunchbacked masked person in front of him with wary eyes. The figure was hunchbacked, the skin was dry and wrinkled, and the hair was white. No biological pressure could be felt coming from the body. The mask worn on the face had a very conspicuous clover pattern etched into it. Seeing the clover pattern on the mask, Linziken couldn't help but feel a sinking sensation in his heart. The sect hierarch of the subsect had an ordinary 9th Order Great Perfection biological level, and the mask was etched with a single clover pattern. The biological level of the masked man was advanced 6th Order, and his mask was etched with a double clover pattern. And the mask of this present hunchbacked person was etched with a triple clover pattern. What did this mean? It meant that the person could very possibly be a rare level fighter. A fighter at the same level as Yuan Dongji. At this thought, Linziken felt somewhat desperate. Even if he had all the advantages and was skilled at defeating higher level enemies. Being of only ordinary 9th Order himself, he would never be able to defeat a rare level fighter. The emergence of a genius like you on Earth truly surprises me, said the hunchbacked masked person in a slightly hoarse voice. What kind of parents are needed to produce a human whose physical strength rivals that of an alien? If given the chance, I should meet your parents. As soon as the words fell, with a thought, the hunchbacked masked person instantly rose from the ground. Then, he levitated Linziken from afar, intending to take him back to the headquarters of the Divine Plant Cult. It's over. Linziken's face turned ashen. Just then, a series of water blades attacked swiftly from the side, carrying a harsh breaking sound through the air. In quick succession, they sliced the vines around Linziken into several sections. At the same time, dozens upon hundreds of water jets mixed with rich blood chi power, like bullets, shot towards the hunchbacked masked person. Amidst the thudding sounds, The body of the hunchbacked masked person was instantly pierced by water jets like a honeycomb, and the entire person fell to the ground like a bird with broken wings. As he fell, Linziken, who lost the support of his spiritual power, also fell alongside. Upon landing, Linziken adjusted his falling posture, landed on both feet first, and safely landed. The hunchbacked masked person, riddled with bloody holes, smashed heavily onto the ground, kicking up a large amount of fallen leaves and dust. Linziken instinctively looked towards where the hunchbacked masked person was. Then, to his surprise, he found that there was no trace of the hunchbacked masked person there. Instead, there was nothing but a dry tree trunk full of holes. Before he could react to what was happening, a somewhat surprised elderly voice suddenly came from a towering tree in front of him. "Yuan Dongji, how come you are here?" Following the voice, Linziken gazed into the distance. He then noticed the hunchbacked masked person who had been earlier pierced by water projectiles standing unharmed atop the towering tree ahead, gazing up into the distance with a deep and ghostly look. Following the direction of the hunchbacked masked person's gaze, Linziken saw Yuan Dongji, dressed in a blue and white porcelain cheongsam. At that moment, Yuan Dongji was floating elegantly above a stream. Her feet stood upon an uprising water jet. A pair of cold and beautiful eyes reflected a domineering glance. Her presence was exceptionally strong. The moment Linziken made a splash in the military area, "I knew you from the divine plant cult would not be able to sit still, so I've been secretly guarding him, waiting for you to make a move," said Yuan Dongji indifferently. After hearing this, the hunchbacked masked person laughed and said, "Using my own strategy against me? Interesting." Then, he continued with a calm demeanor, "Let Yao Heling come out. I alone am more than enough to deal with you two little girls." "Hat, how arrogant," scoffed Yuan Dongji. "Do you think it's still the same as in the past? I am no longer weaker than you. There is no need to involve Yao Heling." No sooner had her words fallen than the water jet under Yuan Dongji's feet suddenly expanded dozens of times. Countless water blades and spears separated from it, instantly filling the sky. "Go!" As this command sounded, in the next second, the water blades and spikes floating behind Yuan Dongji targeted the hunchbacked old man and shot out speedily like a barrage of arrows. "Rise!" The hunchbacked masked person shouted loudly, summoning countless vines from the forest below to surge skyward, blocking all the incoming water blades and spikes. Then, he immediately controlled these vines to attack Yuan Dongji, covering the sky and moving towards her in an eclipsing manner. With a thought, Yuan Dongji condensed a 40-meter-long water blade from the water jet below her. She gripped it tightly with both hands and swung it powerfully, instantly splitting the enveloping net of vines in two. Boom! The ground beneath the feet of the hunchbacked masked person suddenly shook violently. Chapter 269, 178, The Fox-Eared Girl Who Appears Like a Ghost _2. The next instant, dozens upon dozens of towering ancient trees uprooted themselves, swinging their countless vines towards Yuan Dongji. It was as if all the gods and Buddhas had descended from the heavens, creating an immensely shocking spectacle. In that time, the entire coastal forest shook and trembled, with soil flying and stones splitting apart. Birds and beasts, as if driven mad, fled outwards in a frenzy. For a moment, it felt as though the end of the world had arrived. When immortals clash, the mortals suffer. Linziken saw the situation turning bad and immediately turned to run, afraid of being caught in the crossfire of the battle between the two rare-level fighters. But before he had run a few steps, he suddenly remembered the pile of flesh on the ground that he hadn't devoured yet. So he quickly turned back, reached out to the flesh, and thought, "Devour. You have devoured a large amount of the wood spirit's life essence. Wood spirit album. 100%. You have devoured a large amount of the 9-turn soul worm's life essence. 9-turn soul worm album, 100%. After devouring it all, Linziken immediately got up and dashed away with all his strength, putting distance between himself and the battlefield. He was just an ordinary level ant. The two rare level fighters in the sky were unleashing their full firepower, and even a strand of their residual force could grievously injure or even kill him. If he didn't hurry, he might truly die without knowing how it happened. As he was sprinting away, the void slowly revealed a scene. A green-skinned humanoid creature, less than a meter tall with 4 wings on its back, hovered 10 meters above the ground, controlling a several meters tall vine-like exotic plant to shoot out a mass of spiky tendrils wildly toward the surrounding exotic beasts. In just a moment, all the exotic beasts within several miles suffered a brutal fate. Their bodies were ensnared by the poisonous tendrils and mercilessly dragged towards the exotic plant. As Linziken ran, he glanced at the beasts entangled by the vines. To his surprise, he found they were all exotic beasts from the albums he had opened. The ghost squid with the luck of the waters. The ferocious great eagle with the eye of the skies. The stealth dragon with its natural camouflage. The void eel with its danger perception. The living dead slugs with their rapid self-healing. The 10,000 poison mongoose with its immunity to 100 poisons. All 6 exotic beasts were now dragged under that exotic plant. As the tendrils tightened fiercely, they all perished on the spot, becoming fresh corpses. Soon enough. At the top of the exotic plant, a bright red floral bud sprouted. The bud grew rapidly, becoming larger and more mature before one's eyes. As the bud increased in size, the 6 exotic beast corpses wrapped by the tendrils rapidly shriveled up. Within moments, they turned into skeletal remains, covered only by their dry skin. And by now, the floral bud at the top of the exotic plant had fully blossomed into a flower. It was a bizarre and enchanting flower. The petals were as red as blood, covered with wriggling blood vessels. The center of the flower looked like a fleshy grape, emitting a vile and salty scent. It made one feel slightly uneasy to look at it. Seeing the flower fully matured, the humanoid creature's eyes brimmed with greed as it reached out to pluck it and devoured it whole. Shortly after, the 4 wings on its back were instantly filled with blood vessel-like patterns that pulsated with the throbbing of life. At the same time, its body became stronger. Its muscles bulged slightly, filled with explosive power. After it left, a black worm crawled out of the earth and onto the shriveled corpses of the exotic beasts. Then, extending a needle-like proboscis, it accurately pierced the brow of a corpse, sucking the spiritual power left within the skull. When the worm was deeply absorbed in its feast, the humanoid creature returned, discovering the worm's presence. With a mere thought, it shot its tendrils at the insect on the corpse, intending to kill it and use it as nourishment for the exotic plant to bloom. However, just as the tendrils were about to strike the worm, they suddenly halted mid-air. Then, quite unexpectedly, they turned and attacked the humanoid creature instead. It was the worm releasing spiritual power, forcibly seizing control of the tendrils from the humanoid, instantly reversing the situation. The scene unfolding in the void came to this point and quickly dissipated. In its place, 4 pieces of information appeared in the void. You have successfully opened the Wood Spirit album and gained the biometric attribute Forest Lord. Forest Lord, you can control the surrounding plants by consuming spiritual power. You have successfully opened the 9-turn Soul Worm album and gained the biometric attribute Advanced Spirit. Advanced Spirit, your spiritual power receives a significant boost. A Forest Lord who can control plants? An Advanced Spirit that can strengthen the mind? Both attributes seemed to complement each other. And both leaned towards a mage's attributes. Thinking this, Linziken couldn't help but feel a bit relieved. The reason he had been able to kill the man in the mask across 6 levels without injury wasn't just because his own strength was defying the heavens. Another important factor was that the man was a mage-type genetic integrator with no remarkable physicality. Otherwise, instead of an uninjured cross-level solo kill, a crash and burn would have been possible. But then again, luck is also a part of strength, nothing more to say. Buzz. Suddenly, a buzzing sound of rapid motion came from not far off. Lin Zikin's heart sank, and he immediately used the skill of the Eye of the Sky to look in the direction of the noise. And what he saw was an unexpected figure. It was the instructor Lu Tianrong. On the other side, Lu Tianrong had also spotted him and immediately sped up to approach, looking to rendezvous with him. Lin Zikin tensed up and burst forth with chi blood, swiftly distancing himself from Lu Tianrong, not letting him get close. Chapter 270, 178, The Fox-Eared Girl Who Appears Like a Ghost _3. He suspected that Lu Tianrong was a traitor. Previously, when he faced the masked man, Lu Tianrong did not appear. Just now, when he faced the hunchbacked masked person, Lu Tianrong was also absent. But now, as he had just regained his freedom and was about to make a run for it, Lu Tianrong showed up. If that wasn't a traitor, then what was? 99.9999% a traitor. Lin Zikin was very cautious. Adhering to the principle of not harboring malice but always keeping guard, he directly labeled Lu Tianrong as a traitor. As he unleashed a frantic burst of chi blood within his body, his legs moved into afterimages, keeping Lu Tianrong from getting close. However, fate was not on his side. Lu Tianrong's speed was multiple times faster than his. In less than half a minute, Lu Tianrong caught up with him and appeared at his side. Ziyi Chen. It's me. Instructor Lu Tianrong. As Lu Tianrong closed in, he shouted at Lin Zikin, who was less than 10 meters away. At this moment, due to overactivation of his exotic beast gene, his body's transformation into a beast was very apparent. His mouth was full of large and sharp fangs. A pair of arms covered in fluffy hair grew from his back. And with his body drenched in blood, the entire person looked extremely ferocious. Instructor Lu, what's going on with you? Lin Zikin felt a bit nervous inside, but his face did not show it, he just carried a hint of confusion. Lu Tianrong's biological level was high level 6th order. And he was not severely injured. As for Lin Zikin's strength, at best, it was equivalent to high level 4th rank. If Lu Tianrong really was a traitor, then it was more likely that Lin Zikin would face a grim outcome. It was hard for Lin Zikin not to feel anxious. Lu Tianrong, unaware of his inner tension, quickly explained to him. Previously, when fighting against that masked man who could control vines, in order to defeat him, I had to excessively activate my body's exotic beast gene. After the excessive activation, my strength became stronger than the masked man. But unfortunately, my skills were still not as good as his, and he trapped me with his vines, leaving me unable to break free. Luckily, just now Principal Yuan found me and helped me get rid of the vine's bindings with a throw of his water knife, otherwise I'd still be stuck there. Hearing Lu Tianrong's words, Lin Zikin chose to believe. Because, with Lu Tianrong's strength, dealing with him would be a piece of cake, there was no need to make up such convoluted stories. Lu Tianrong asked, by the way, where are the others? Why are you alone? Lin Zikin explained, earlier, we were being pursued by the heavily injured masked man. Knowing he was after me, I drew him away alone to let the others escape. They should be at the bus now. I see. Lu Tianrong nodded, then asked, what about the masked man? He's dead. Lin Zikin said startlingly. Upon hearing this, Lu Tianrong's eyes widened in disbelief. Lin Zikin explained again, the masked man was severely injured at the time, and his strength had greatly diminished. I was able to kill him by taking advantage of a surprise attack. I see. Lu Tianrong nodded and said, the masked man was heavily injured by me at that time. His strength must have declined to the point where it wasn't even high level anymore, so with a surprise attack, you could indeed win. Having said that, he continued to ask, did the sect hierarch whose biological level was as high as ordinary 9th rank also die? Lin Zikin said, yeah, he's dead. Lu Tianrong nodded, not probing further. He assumed that the sect hierarch was beaten to death by a group of the special trainees. Lin Zikin asked, "Instructor, is your body all right?" "It's fine." Lu Tianrong smiled and said, "Although there's a tendency to mutate, as long as I get back to the military area and deal with it in time, there won't be any issues." Lin Zikin then asked, "Instructor, what's the story with that ninth elder who's currently fighting fiercely with Principal Yuan?" Lu Tianrong replied, "This ninth elder is from the Divine Plant Cult and is one of the sect's elders. The Divine Plant Cult has 9 elders in total, all of whom are rare-level fighters. The ninth elder specifically manages the internal personnel matters of the sect. This person is said to be nearly 200 years old and many influential figures have dealt with him when they were young. Of course, it wasn't a voluntary engagement, but rather, they were either threatened or enticed by him. There are rumors saying that when Principal Yuan was young, he was threatened and tempted by this ninth elder, but luckily due to the support of his powerful family and his own great strength, he managed to not fall for it." "So that's how it is?" Lin Zikin asked, "You said that all 9 elders of the Divine Plant Cult are rare-level fighters, but what about their sect hierarch? Is he an epic-level powerhouse?" Lu Tianrong shook his head. "Not sure, the sect hierarch of the Divine Plant Cult has never shown his face. But I guess, he must be an epic-level powerhouse. Otherwise, it would be impossible to gather so many followers and establish such a large heretical section. An epic level, this was a rank that could withstand a nuclear bomb." Lin Zikin felt this level was very distant. A minute and a half later, the two finally burst out of the forest and saw the bus parked at the roadside. At the same time, they also saw Shen Qinghan and others. Those people, poisoned by the flower toxin, were moving extremely slowly. They had just emerged from the forest not long ago and were about to board the bus to leave the area. "Xiao Chen." As soon as Shen Qinghan saw Lin Zikin, she immediately ran over to him, bursting into tears and throwing herself into his arms. While crying, she said, "I was really scared just now, scared that I would never see you again. Let's never part again, okay? Not a single step apart. We won't part." Lin Zikin touched her head to comfort her. At that moment, Ma Ziwei came over and asked, "Why are you covered in blood? Are you hurt anywhere?" Before Lin Zikin could respond, she handed him a small medicine bottle she was holding and said coldly, "I have a great restoration pill here, take it and eat it." She remembered that Lin Zikin had once saved her, now it was her turn to repay him. Just as Lin Zikin was about to say it wasn't necessary, Shen Qinghan, who was in his arms, released her embrace and began to carefully examine his body, saying worriedly, "Xiao Chen, you're covered in blood. Where are you hurt? Is it serious?" When Shen Qinghan first laid eyes on Lin Zikin, she was so overwhelmed with emotion that she had not noticed the detail of Lin Zikin being covered in blood. Now that Ma Ziwei had brought it up, she realized belatedly. She felt very guilty for a moment. Feeling that she was too clumsy and not as considerate as an outsider, falling short of being a fiancé. Lin Zikin held her hand and said, "It's okay, stop checking, I'm not injured. The blood on me is someone else's, not mine." "Really?" Shen Qinghan looked up at Lin Zikin. She suspected that Lin Zikin was telling a white lie, intending not to worry her. "Really, I'm not lying to you," Lin Zikin said and, without further explanation, turned towards Ma Ziwei with a smile, "Thank you for your kindness, but I'm not injured, so I don't need the Great Restoration Pill." "No problem, you take it. If you need it later on, use it then." Ma Ziwei stuffed the Great Restoration Pill into Lin Zikin's hand and then turned and walked away, tactfully not disturbing the couple's moment. She didn't like to owe others favors and would repay them on the spot if she could. In certain special situations, she can even accept betrothal by offering herself. Lin Zikin looked at the medicine bottle in his hand that contained a Great Restoration Pill, didn't think too much about it, and chose to put it in his pocket. "Everyone's here." Let's quickly get on the bus and leave. This place is very dangerous now. The Divine Plant Cult has sent a rare level fighter here, who is currently confronting Principal Yuan. Continuing to stay here, we might be affected by the clash between those two rare level fighters. Liu Tianrong, enduring the pain of his mutation, shouted loudly to everyone. As time passed, he felt the beastly nature inside him growing stronger and wanted to head to the nearest hospital for treatment as soon as possible, to avoid some permanent damage that could be prevented if it took too long. Upon hearing this, everyone was surprised. The Divine Plant Cult sent out a rare level fighter? Is that necessary? Also, Principal Yuan came? What about the military district's people? Why haven't they come? Everyone was full of doubts in their hearts. But they all knew that now was not the time to dwell on these doubts. The top priority was to quickly get on the bus and leave this place. Thinking this, everyone boarded the bus, waiting for Liu Tianrong to drive away from this place. When everyone was on the bus, the engine already started, ready to set off. Suddenly, a graceful and pretty figure appeared in front of the bus. It was a vixen character. Without any warning, like a phantom, she appeared out of thin air in front of the bus in the blink of an eye. P.S. I'm holding out my bowl, asking for monthly tickets and recommendation tickets.